All right, so you picked experiment number 1, which is make your own biosphere. So if I asked you where you lived, what would you say? Well, you might give me your street address or tell me the name of your town. But did you know we can all say that we live in the biosphere? And that's because we all can call the biosphere home. You see, the biosphere is all parts of and around the planet Earth where life can be found. It reaches all the way up in the sky, high where the birds fly, and all the way down low, deep in the ocean trenches, where you can find those little tiny microorganisms, which are basically just like little bacteria. So the biosphere includes all living things, from plants to animals to fungi to bacteria, and any place where you can find life on or around the Earth. So the biosphere includes all of these living things. But did you know that the first living things to be able to call the biosphere home were here 3.5 billion years ago? They were basically just bacteria and other really simple life forms. Now, whenever they first were here, they didn't need oxygen to survive, but over time, these life forms developed the ability to be able to make oxygen using water and carbon dioxide from the air. Now, this ability changed the biosphere as we know it, because with more oxygen in the air meant that new and more complex life forms could live here. So soon that biosphere that only had little tiny microorganisms and bacteria, well, it became home to different plants, animals, and eventually humans, just like you and me. So to be able to survive, we all know that living things are going to need energy. And all of that energy needed to keep living things alive can be found flowing through the biosphere, and it all starts with the sun. So today you are going to be creating your own self-sufficient biosphere. We are going to call it your biodome. Now, using water, air, which is oxygen, and sunlight, your biodome is slowly going to create its own water cycle, which means it's going to be able to sustain living organisms without you having to do any work. It's really cool to be able to see how you're going to create a really, really tiny version of our world and the biosphere that we live in a jar. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you need to do is read over your instructions completely. Have you gotten out all of the supplies that you need, and are they ready to go? So stop what you're doing right now, go back and look in Schoology. I actually went ahead and printed off my copy of the list of things that I need and all of the steps that I need to follow. Remember, a good scientist is prepared and has everything set up and ready to go before they start. So stop the video, get set up, and then come back. All right, let me go ahead and get set up with everything, all right? So I went ahead and already got out everything that I was going to need for my experiment, which is what you should be doing right now. Okay, so the first thing, number 1, it says, thoroughly clean an airtight glass container like a mason jar. The jar needs to be cleaned to avoid any mold growth. So I already went ahead and did this step. I got my mason jar, mine is a 32-ounce mason jar, and I cleaned it out thoroughly to make sure that I won't grow any mold during my biosphere process. All right, so step 2, add about 1 to 2 inches of clean sand, gravel, or charcoal pieces to the bottom of the jar. This is going to create the drainage. So as the water cycle is creating in your biosphere, you're going to need an area and a space for the water to be able to drain from the rest of your living organisms. So, like I said, you can use sand, gravel from outside, or charcoal pieces. Where I live, I don't have any gravel. So I actually, when I was at Walmart grocery shopping, I stopped in the fish aisle and got some aquarium. This is charcoal gravel. So you can use whatever you have at home. This was only $2 for me. You could go outside and find some gravel around your home, or even if you have sand, a sandbox, a fish tank, whatever, use what you have. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my 1 to 2 inches of my charcoal pieces. And that looks about good there. All right, so step number 3, add about 1 inch layer of small pebbles. So I went outside in my rock beds and I picked through and found some small pebbles. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this now. About 1 inch it says. Add a little bit more. Okay, all right, so step number 4, it says add about 2 to 3 inches of soil. So I have my potting soil from planting my flowers this year, so I'm going to use that. You use whatever you have. So it says about 2 to 3 inch layer. This is where our plants are going to get their nutrients, so we want to make sure that we add a sufficient amount for them to be able to grow. We're gonna need some more. Right, and all of these things can be found in or around your home, so have some fun with it. Go outside, look for the rocks, look for the pebbles, look for the soil that you're going to use. You should be interacting with the environment during this experiment. Okay, so I have about 2 to 3 inches of my soil for the nutrients for my plants. All right, moving right along. Step number 5, so I'm gonna stick some holes in the soil and add some small plants, moss, rocks, sticks. I actually went outside and I looked through my rock beds and I found lots of different small plants that were growing. Now you can see that I made sure that I pulled out my plant with the roots still intact. If you don't have your roots intact and all you have are leaves, you're not going to be able to continue to grow those small plants. So make sure that whenever you're digging or you're pulling out your small plants, that you still have the roots for them to be able to grow and suck up the nutrients from the soil and the water to be able to grow. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to just use my finger to make some holes in my soil and stick in my plants and make sure that I cover up those roots so they can grow. I also just found some cool rocks whenever I was searching for my pebbles, so I'm going to add those for some decoration. Found a couple of twigs and sticks I'm going to add in as well. You can add as many plants, as many rocks, as many sticks as you want. You guys know that I hate bugs, so I obviously didn't do this step. But if you want to add an actual living organism and a species to your biosphere, you absolutely can. Worms or beetles would be perfect just to be able to add that extra nutrients and that carbon dioxide that our biosphere is going to need to thrive. So, you know, I didn't go searching for any bugs, but you definitely can and add them in there. All right, moving on to the next step is we're going to be adding our water. Remember, all living things need sunlight, oxygen, and water to thrive and survive. So make sure that you don't drown your plant, but you're definitely going to, or your biosphere, but you're definitely going to want to make sure that it is moist and has enough water to be able to create that water cycle that we were talking about. Now, it is okay if you end up adding too much water. What you will end up doing if you recognize that your biosphere isn't working properly is just take off your lid, let it breathe for a couple of days, just a day or so, and let that water evaporate, and then close the lid and let it continue its process. Okay, so now that I have finished my final step, I can go ahead and screw on my airtight container. You're going to want to make sure that it is on very tightly and that air is not getting into the jar. And that's it. I'm done. I can go and set it in indirect sunlight, which means put it by a window, but not to where the light is going to directly hit it. if the sunlight is directly hitting your biodome, the plants and the organisms are going to cook. They call it cook, but it's just going to have too much heat and it's all going to dry up. You want to make sure that it is in the indirect sunlight, so that it can create its own water cycle. You're going to be able to know that it's creating its water cycle because you're going to see the condensation of the water on the side of the jar, which was a vocabulary word and we've already talked about. So yeah, now it's your guys' turn. Go into Schoology, get started. I hope that you guys have fun learning and exploring. I can't wait to see your pictures and hear your favorite thing about what you learned during all of this. Remember, you are an ecologist during this experiment, so go outside, interact with our environment, and have fun making your own little world. All right, kids, have fun learning, and I will talk to you soon.